My name is Mark. I'm 59 years old, and I suppose you could say I've led a quiet life. Not by any means a perfect one, but one that I could look back on without regret. I wasn't the kind of person who yearned for anything extravagant, nor did I chase dreams that were too far out of reach. I worked in construction management for over 3 decades, quietly earning my paycheck, paying my bills, and saving what I could for my family. Life, for the most part, was simple, and I liked it that way. I'd raised Alex, my only son, with the same values. My father had taught me the importance of steady hands and a clear head, so I passed those lessons down to Alex. I wasn't overly strict, but I made sure he understood the importance of being responsible, of thinking before acting. He always seemed to take it to heart, or so I thought. From the time he was a little boy, Alex had a knack for convincing people. He could talk his way into and out of things without breaking a sweat. I remember when he was in high school, he'd talk about his future in a way that made you believe he could take over the world if he wanted to. He was driven, or at least he appeared to be. He went to college, studied business, and I always thought that if anyone in the family would make something big of themselves, it would be him. He often looked at me with a kind of reverence, as if I had all the answers. "Dad, you're the smartest one I know," he'd say, and I'd chuckle. It wasn't that I didn't believe in him. It was just that I knew life wasn't all about the quick wins. It was about the long haul, about making calculated decisions. I thought he understood that, but sometimes even the best of us misread things. That afternoon, Alex came to me with that folder. It was the first sign that something was about to go wrong. I was sitting at my desk, sorting through some old papers when he knocked on the doorframe. "Hey, Dad, you got a minute?" he asked. "Of course, Alex. Come on in." He walked in with a folder tucked under his arm, his face more serious than I'd seen in a while. Normally, Alex had a light-hearted air about him, the kind of person who always seemed to have a smile ready, no matter what was going on. But today his face was tight with tension, something that didn't sit well with me. I couldn't pinpoint why at the time, but I felt a small shift in the atmosphere. "I need you to sign something," he said, sitting down across from me. I raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "It's for a car, for work," he explained. "The bank's requiring a co-signer because I don't have enough credit history yet. It's just a formality, really. They need someone older on the contract, and I was hoping you could help." I stared at the folder for a moment, trying to digest what he was saying. Alex had been good about managing his money. At least, I thought he had been. I knew he'd been struggling a bit after college to find steady work, but I didn't think it was bad enough for him to need help with a car loan. I looked at him, seeing the look in his eyes. He wasn't asking for a favor. He was asking for trust. "It's just a guarantee," he continued, sensing my hesitation. "It's really just in case something happens. You won't be on the hook for anything. I just need your name on this. That's all." I wanted to believe him. I did. After all, this was my son, the one who had looked up to me for years, who had trusted me. And though I'd always been the cautious one, I had to admit I'd never been overly protective. I'd raised him to make his own decisions, to be independent. I wasn't the kind of father to hover over every move he made. Maybe that's where I went wrong. So I signed. I didn't understand the documents. The bank paperwork looked like a foreign language to me, full of legalese I'd never been bothered to learn. But Alex's assurances were enough for me. "Just a guarantee," he said. "Nothing more." And just like that, the matter was settled. I had no reason to suspect that anything could go wrong. After all, why would my own son put me in a position where I'd be liable for something he couldn't handle? He wouldn't do that. At least that's what I told myself. A few days later, the car arrived, and I thought nothing more of it. It seemed harmless. Alex was starting his new job. The car would help him get to work, and everything was going according to plan. But little did I know, that simple signature, that one small act of trust, would soon unravel everything I thought I knew about my son and myself. It's strange how quickly everything can change. One moment I'm signing a piece of paper for my son, thinking I'm just helping him out. The next I'm buried in a mess of debts that I never could have imagined, let alone prepared for. The first letter arrived a month later. I was at home reading the paper in my easy chair, a warm cup of coffee beside me. It was a quiet morning, the kind I liked, uneventful, predictable. But then I saw the envelope. It was from the bank. I don't know what made me open it right away. I was never one to be impatient with paperwork. But that day, for some reason, I didn't hesitate. I ripped open the letter, the bank's logo staring back at me. It was a generic, formal letter, the kind I'd seen 1,000 times in my life. But when I started reading, the words blurred. The numbers on the page stood out to me, and they hit me like a punch to the gut. The amount they were claiming I owed was $120,000. I reread the sentence. No, I couldn't be right. This wasn't possible. Overdue. I dropped the letter onto the coffee table and sat back, staring at the ceiling. I didn't understand. How could this be happening? I wasn't even involved in anything. All I had done was sign my name as a co-signer to help Alex with a car loan. This wasn't my responsibility, but it was my name on the contract, wasn't it? I glanced down at the letter again, my fingers trembling as I held it. The language was clear. The loan wasn't just Alex's, it was mine. I wasn't just a co-signer. I was the primary borrower. The weight of it hit me hard. In the fine print, it was clear. I was the one liable for the debt, and Alex had signed as the owner of the car. My mind raced. This wasn't just a car loan anymore. This was a trap. I had been played, and I didn't know how or why. I stood up, pacing back and forth in my living room. My thoughts were a blur, one after another, all fighting for attention. The numbers, the terms, the reality of the situation. It all felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But the worst part? I still couldn't bring myself to believe it. Maybe there was some mistake. Maybe it was just a clerical error. I grabbed my phone and called Alex. The ringing felt like it lasted forever. "Dad?" he said, sounding surprised. I didn't even ask how he was. I just blurted it out. "Alex, I got a letter from the bank. It says I owe $120,000. What the hell is this?" There was a long pause on the other end, and I could hear him shifting. "What? No. No, Dad. That can't be right. It's in black and white, Alex. They're calling it overdue. What the hell is going on?" Another silence. Then, "I don't know, Dad. I'll look into it." I hung up, but something in my gut told me I wasn't going to get any real answers from him. For the next few days, I didn't hear from him. The letter sat on the table, mocking me with every glance. I tried to ignore it, but every time I thought of it, the numbers haunted me. It wasn't just about the loan anymore. It was about trust. I had signed my name because I believed him, and now my entire life was teetering on the edge because of that one signature. I didn't speak much to my wife about it. She could see the change in me, the way I was shutting down, retreating inward. I was waiting for some kind of explanation, something that would make sense of this mess. But the silence from Alex was deafening. Then a week later, the next letter arrived. Another overdue notice, and the amount had increased. I was getting calls from the bank, collections. I could feel the weight of it bearing down on me. It wasn't just a loan anymore. It was my life, my reputation, and my future being slowly suffocated by something I didn't understand. And all I had to show for it was a signature. The one signature I thought I was signing for my son, for his future. Instead, it had become the chain that bound me. The next time Alex called, he didn't seem like the son I thought I knew. His voice was shaky, almost pleading. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." I stood there silent, listening. "Then explain it to me, Alex. What happened? You said it was just a guarantee. You told me I wasn't liable." "I didn't think it would get this bad," he replied, his voice quiet. "I thought I could make the payments. But things got out of control." Out of control? No, this wasn't about control. This was about betrayal. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. But something inside me had shifted. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. His choice. He had dragged me into this, and now I was the one left holding the bag. That night I sat at my desk, staring at the papers. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just calculated. There was no point in getting angry. That wouldn't help. There was only one thing I could do: find a way out. And if I had to make Alex understand what real responsibility was, then that's what I would do. I wasn't going to be a victim. Not now, not ever. I didn't speak to Alex again for a while, not because I was punishing him with silence, but because I had nothing to say. What could I say to a person who looked me in the eyes and lied so easily? The house was quiet as always, but now it wasn't peaceful. It was tense. Even the walls felt like they were holding their breath. When I told my wife, quietly, factually, about the loan, she didn't look surprised. That's what stung the most. She just exhaled and said, "He probably didn't calculate properly, Mark. You know he's not like you. He's still learning. You're not going to ruin everything over this, are you?" Her words rang in my ears like an accusation. Ruin everything? Everything was already ruined. She just couldn't see it yet, or maybe she refused to. Maybe she still saw Alex as the little boy who used to crawl into our bed after a nightmare, who cried when he broke a window with a baseball. Maybe she didn't want to see the man he had become, the man who forged trust into a weapon and used it against his father. I said nothing. Not then, not to her, not to anyone. But inside, something was collapsing, quietly, deliberately, like the controlled demolition of a building, each floor folding into the next. A part of me, the trusting part, was dying. That night I sat in my office, lights off, the glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows. I pulled out the original documents he'd handed me, the ones I had signed without reading, like a fool. I read every word now, slowly, carefully. I traced the clauses with a pen, underlined figures, highlighted phrases. He hadn't just tricked me. He had orchestrated it. The contract made it clear. I was the borrower. He was listed as the primary asset owner. The car, worth barely half the loan. I wasn't just on the hook. I was the hook. My credit, my income, my stability, all of it had been leveraged to secure a sum that he could never afford to repay. And he knew it. That's when I understood something fundamental. This wasn't about emotions anymore. It wasn't about hurt or betrayal or even disappointment. Those were luxuries, noise that clouded judgment. What I needed now was silence, clarity, numbers. I opened my notebook and began to list everything. Total owed $120,000. Bank interest rate 6.5%. Term 60 months monthly. Due $2,346.91. Fees to date $2,800. Days overdue. 34. I made another column for Alex. What he made, what he spent, his current job, his past jobs, any assets I could think of. I estimated his income, his liabilities. I didn't have exact figures, but I'd been a planner my whole life. I didn't need perfection. I needed a working model. By the time I finished, it was 3:42 a.m. I sat back and looked at the sheet. It was all there. The path forward. Not one fueled by rage, but by numbers. Cold, clear, and fair. I didn't want to crush him. I didn't want to see him ruined. But I would not be ruined for him either. I decided then I would recover what was mine. Not through begging, not through shouting, through structure, through contract, through the same quiet instruments that he had used against me, but with precision he never learned. I looked out the window. The street was empty, bathed in yellow light. He wanted to play like an adult, then he would pay like an adult. This would not be emotional. This would be a transaction, and I would make sure he never forgot it. 3 days later, I walked into the local branch of the bank. I wore a gray wool coat, pressed slacks, and my older leather gloves, the kind that looked formal without saying too much. I waited in line patiently, and when it was my turn, I asked to speak with someone from the loans department. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't say anything unnecessary. Calm was the sharpest tool in my box now. A young man in a tight blue suit led me to a small office with beige walls and a view of the parking lot. He smiled too often and said, "Sir, too much." But he gave me what I asked for, a complete copy of the loan documents. My name on every page. My signature, bold and clear, right next to the clauses that now read like traps. When I asked if the car had been appraised, he clicked through a few files and confirmed what I'd already guessed. Its listed value was $43,000, less than half the loan. I nodded, thanked him, and left. Outside, the winter air bit my cheeks, but I barely noticed. I walked 2 blocks down to a small law office I'd found 2 nights earlier after reading reviews for hours. I didn't want someone flashy. I wanted someone meticulous. I met with a woman named Elena Russo, mid-40s, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up. She shook my hand firmly, then asked only one question. Do you want justice or resolution? Both, I said. She nodded. Then let's make it legal. Over the next 3 hours, we built a plan. I laid out the details, every dollar, every date. Elena was methodical and cold in the best possible way. She didn't ask about my relationship with my son. She asked about what could be proved, what could be signed, and what could be enforced. We drafted a private loan agreement, binding under state law. The structure was simple. Principal owed $120,000 annual interest, 5%, compounded quarterly repayment term, 6 years monthly minimum, $2,050, missed payment clause, penalty fee and legal enforcement, default clause, wage garnishment, and asset seizure. There was no room for interpretation, no space for apologies, just ink and obligation. I reviewed the draft line by line. Elena added a notary section and a prepaid envelope. Before I left her office, she handed me a sealed letter. You want him to sign? She asked. Yes, I said. Then say it like a contract, not like a father. I went home and spent the evening writing my own message to include with the documents. It wasn't long, just 3 paragraphs. Alex, you lied to me. That was your choice. This is mine. Attached is a formal agreement outlining the total sum you will repay, with interest. If you sign it and return it within 5 business days, we proceed as father and son under law. If not, I will file a claim and begin civil proceedings. There will be no negotiation, and I will not entertain emotional appeals. This is not punishment. It's structure. These are not emotions. They are numbers. Dad, I included the notarized agreement and mailed it by certified post. The tracking number said it would arrive on Friday. Then I sat down and poured myself a glass of water. No alcohol, no reward. Just a quiet moment, because I wasn't celebrating anything. This wasn't a win. Not yet. This was the start of a recalibration, of taking back what had been taken, without screaming, without pleading. I wasn't interested in being the victim. I was interested in being the system. The letter arrived on a Friday. By Monday afternoon, my phone rang. I recognized the number, but I waited a few seconds before answering. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to say anything out of anger, not because I was afraid of losing control, but because I'd already decided that control was no longer his to disrupt. Dad, are you serious with this? Alex's voice exploded through the speaker. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence settle, let him squirm in it. He continued louder now, his voice cracking with disbelief or panic. Maybe both. You actually got a lawyer? You mailed me a legal document? What is this? Revenge. You're my father. What the hell are you doing? I waited until he was finished shouting. Then I said, no. What I did was sign a loan I didn't understand. Because you told me to. What I'm doing now is protecting myself, like any adult would. He went quiet for a moment. Then came the guilt, thinly veiled as confusion. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I thought the business would take off. I needed the car. I didn't want to bug you for more money. I just needed help. I'm trying to build something, Dad. That's fine, I said calmly. Building, but not on me. You're going to take me to court? I'm giving you a choice. Either sign the agreement and start paying back what you owe, or I file. Your call. He cursed under his breath, muttered something about, family doesn't do this, and hung up. I didn't call back. I didn't explain anything, because I wasn't negotiating anymore. I wasn't parenting. I was collecting. A week passed. Then one morning I heard the doorbell. I opened it to find Alex on the porch, hair messy, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. He looked smaller than usual, as if some part of him had collapsed inward. I don't agree with how you're doing this, he said. I'm not asking for agreement, I replied. He looked down at the folder in his hands, pulled it out, opened it, and slowly signed every page. We didn't sit. We didn't talk. He handed it back, eyes fixed on the floor. First payments next week, he muttered. I nodded. Due by the 5th monthly. If you're late, there's a fee. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say I'm proud of you. Because this wasn't a moment for emotion. It was a transaction. He walked away back to his car, the same one he'd borrowed my name to get. I closed the door behind him. Inside, I scanned the signed contract and saved it to 3 separate drives. One cloud-based, one physical, and one on a private USB I kept in a fireproof safe. Because trust was no longer my currency, proof was. The next week, $2,050 hit my account. Clean. On time. The beginning of repayment. Not just for the money, but for the disrespect. And as I looked at the bank notification on my phone, I felt no joy, no triumph. Only confirmation that the system I'd built now had its first receipt. There's a rhythm to discipline, once it's no longer fueled by anger. The first month, I expected the money to arrive late, or not at all. I checked my account every day that week, prepared to document the delay and send the first penalty notice. But the payment came, right on the 5th. I said nothing. The second month, it was a day late. I waited. I did not call. I did not ask. I sent a brief email instead. Payment received on the 6th. As outlined in Section 3C of the contract, a $75 late fee has been added. Current balance adjusted accordingly. Regards, Mark. He didn't reply, but 2 days later, the $75 arrived as a separate transfer. This became the pattern. Structured, unemotional, precise. Every 5th of the month, he sent the agreed payment, $2,050. If he was late, and twice he was, the fees applied. He stopped arguing. I stopped explaining. I never used the word son again in our exchanges. Not in the emails, not in the bank memos, not even in my thoughts. He had entered a different category in my mind. Not family, not enemy, just another debtor. And I had become something different too. No longer a father in the traditional sense, but a creditor with strict terms and clear consequences. When people ask me now how it felt to cut off my own child, I answer carefully. Because I didn't cut him off. I didn't scream. I didn't exile. I taught him. I gave him a mirror and told him to look. And every invoice, every digital receipt, every emotionless reminder I sent was a reflection of the man he said he wanted to be: independent, ambitious, adult. Well, adults pay their debts. During this time, his mother, my wife, softened toward him. She still defended him, occasionally, still made excuses. He's learning, she would say. I didn't argue. I just showed her the spreadsheet. Principal, interest, penalties, payments received, payments missed, no colors, no names, just numbers. She stopped asking after a while, and so the months passed. 9, then 10, then 11. In that time, I went on with my life, quietly. I still got up at 6. I still read the paper. I still walked to the park, sat on the same bench and fed the birds. I didn't tell my friends what had happened. I didn't need their pity or their judgment. It wasn't shame that kept me silent. It was discipline, and perhaps pride in its most structured form. By month 12, the balance was almost halved, and for the first time since this began, I allowed myself a thought I hadn't dared entertain. This will end, and when it does, I won't feel lighter. I won't feel victorious. I will feel done, not free of him, but free of the wound. 12 months, $24,600, 12 transfers, 4 late fees, 0 skipped payments, and today, the 13th envelope, final and full. I checked the bank app at 6:03 a.m. It was there, the full remaining balance, down to the last cent. No note, no emoji, no dad, just the wire transfer reference number and the timestamp. I stared at it for a moment longer than necessary, not because I didn't believe it, but because belief wasn't the point. This wasn't about hope or healing. This was the end of a contract, and closure doesn't need an audience. At 7:15, my phone buzzed, a short message. Can we meet? Just for a coffee. It was signed with his name, just his name. I chose the location. Neutral, quiet, A cafe near the courthouse. Symbolic in a way. Clean tables, no music, just the faint humming of an espresso machine. He was already there when I arrived. He stood up as I approached. "Hey," he said. "Thanks for coming." I nodded and sat. He looked different. Thinner. Not unhealthy. Just leaner. Something about his eyes, too. Less restless, more aligned. We ordered. Nothing elaborate. 2 coffees, no sugar. There was silence. Not tense. Just unfamiliar. Finally, he spoke. "I wanted to say thank you." I stirred my cup, though I didn't need to. He went on. "I know I don't deserve much after what happened. I made a mess. A big one. And you didn't yell. You didn't humiliate me. You didn't." I held up my hand gently. He stopped. "I didn't do it for you," I said. "I did it because the only thing worse than being betrayed is becoming the kind of man who lets it happen again." He blinked, swallowed, looked down at his cup. I continued. "You asked me to sign something. I trusted you. You made me regret that. So I taught you what regret costs." He nodded slowly. "And now?" he asked, voice quiet. "Now," I said, finishing my coffee, "you're an adult. Fully. No illusions. You've paid for what you took. And I no longer owe you the comfort of forgetting it happened." He flinched slightly, but said nothing. I stood, pulled a folded paper from my coat pocket, placed it on the table. "Receipt of final payment," I said. "Signed, dated, witnessed. It's over." He picked it up like it was heavier than it looked. "And us?" he asked. I looked at him. Not cruelly, not kindly, just clearly. "That depends on who you are tomorrow, because the man who signed that loan, I don't want to see him again." I turned and walked out into the street. The sky was gray, the pavement damp. A normal day, really. But as I walked, I felt something I hadn't in a year. Not happiness, not even relief. Just a quiet, steady sense of balance. He had played like an adult, and now he would live like one, without safety nets, without illusions. And me? I didn't owe anyone anything. Not the bank, not my family, not even myself. I was clear.